We were cruising downstream and our boat driver just started pointing and said, "Pororoca, Pororoca." And literally I have a cold chill coming over my body now as I relate the story.
Just waiting there, and then we heard this strong, like an avalanche coming through, and this huge noise, like super like strong, like, oh, what's that?
I was sitting in the boat and the driver looked over to me and he said, "It's your turn, you're up." And my heart literally stopped.
Something strange and dangerous dwells in the Amazon River. It is as old as the river itself. It is no animal, but the most vicious river creatures flee from it. The native people know it and fear it. They call it Pororoca. In the local tongue, the name means huge noise and killer at the same time. The Pororoca is born of the conflict between the great Amazon River and the unalterable surge of the Atlantic Ocean itself. For much of the year, it is kept at bay by the vast flow of water pouring from the river's mouth. But during the dry season, the flows from the river wane and can no longer fight off the advances of the ocean tides. The monster comes alive and surges inland, crashing its way up the river channel at the vanguard of the tides, smashing everything in its path. The destructive power it brings with it to this already harsh environment is chilling. It is truly a monster, the taker of lives and breaker of dreams. Former Olympic slalom kayak racer and world freestyle champion Corran Addison has come to Brazil to find the monster and to fulfill a long-held dream. He and his team of elite paddlers from around the globe intend to become the first kayakers to ever surf the Pororoca.
Mas é de coração. Perdoe esse samba bobo, mas foi o que eu pude fazer. Perdoe esse samba bobo, mas é de coração. Perdoe esse samba bobo, mas foi o que eu pude fazer. Tudo que eu queria era fazer um samba bonito para você. Tudo que eu queria era fazer um samba bonito para você. Eu não sou carioca da gema. Eu não nasci lá na Bahia. Mas mesmo assim, meu bem, eu fiz um samba pra você. Mas mesmo assim, meu bem, eu fiz um samba pra você.
The thunderous Pororoca plays such an important part in the lives of the people who live along the banks of the Amazon that every Brazilian child is taught of its devastating power in school. Fishermen know just when it will be nearby and stay off the water until it passes. Known as a tidal bore, the Pororoca is a giant wave that forms when the right set of conditions exist.
Usually when the tide moves up a river bed, the river's pretty still by that time. It's not moving very fast. So what happens is the tide comes traveling up the river and just pushes all the river water upstream and no wave is formed. But with the Pororoca, it if you can imagine a river moving downwards pretty fast and the tide coming in just as fast, they come up against each other and a wave is formed like that. And you've got this whole wall of tide. You've got literally the entire ocean behind this wave regenerating its power as it pushes against the river's current. The river's current holds it, and eventually there's a break point and the tide just pushes upstream, forming this wave that we're able to surf. That wave travels almost 25 kilometers upriver, just sort of reforming, then it dies down for a little while as there's less current, and when it hits a place that's shallower and with more current, it just jacks up the wave and regenerates its energy.
Huge tidal bores like this one are a rare occurrence in nature, with fewer than a dozen of these waves in existence worldwide. Of them all, the Pororoca is certainly one of the most feared and revered. It is the same general mechanism that turns gentle Pacific swells into a surf paradise along the north shores of Hawaii, or the placid St. Lawrence River into the incredible surf playground at the Lachine Rapids.
Well, on the bank you can see that there's plenty of broken trees and everything's just completely changing. And 1 month ago, it changed about a quarter mile out into the river. Pororoca, it changes the river dramatically, and in the winter, it goes back to its original position. This is something I've never seen before. I mean, there's just the clay and the movement of earth. It's absolutely amazing.
The wave pushes water over the river's banks, tearing down everything in its path, leaving a trail of water-soaked destruction behind it. Just 8 years ago, in spite of the grave danger and the generally held belief that it was suicidal, Brazilian surfers Guga Arruda and Hiraldo Guerros took a frightening leap of faith. After observing the Pororoca for years, they got on their surfboards, pushed off from shore, and paddled into the path of the oncoming wave.
Today when we were going down the river, I was watching the boys come up the river from around here in an old diesel boat, 4 or 5 of them, and you know that they're going to a part of the river where the wave isn't going to break, but they're all standing on the bank holding ropes and ready for the go, and then you see the wave start to come, and you see them there trying to start the old diesel engine, and off they go, and they're charging for the wave, and where they are is safe, and you just see a little bit of a swell come, the boys are all ready to jump over, and they got a little putt-putt diesel engine, and they're going for it.
It just comes towards you, and one of the best descriptive words, I think, is relentless. Once it starts, it's all on. The wave is traveling, and it will take out anything in its path. And you can either get out of its path or surf it. Those are your options.
The day before, there was 2 guys there in their little canoe, and as the wave came around and knocking the mud bank off, these 2 boys holding onto the canoe. It's the funniest thing. They're just terrified of it. But they can see us all surfing it, and these 2 boys in the canoe, they want to do it so bad. They're there on the bank, sort of sitting in the canoe, like trying to just catch the little ripples that come around.
Cool, man.
Sou da floresta amazônica, é o meu destino de cantador. Somália, Angola, Brasil, terceiro mundo, a mesma cor. Eu penso que o homem exala seu cheiro de chão. Se ele é o fruto e a raiz, tem a luz da paixão, que finca o pé qual adubo e o seu coração procria. Meu pai tem no riso um rio de esperança revelador. Minha mãe não esconde.
Corran had first heard about the strange wave deep in the Amazon jungle soon after it was first surfed in 1997. Since that day, it has been his dream to be the first to surf it in a kayak. As the reigning world silver medalist in freestyle kayaking at the time, and the progenitor of the modern river surfing kayak, Corran was the ideal person to give it a try. But the pressures of a full-time competitive schedule and 3 world championship medals that followed meant that it would be 8 years before whitewater kayaking's most notorious paddler would be able to realize his dream.
Trago a coragem na mão, mestre Lucindo é cantador.
Corran had no intention of traveling to Brazil to surf this wave with just anyone. From the first, he began talking to and recruiting the best wave paddling surfers in the world. As time went by, the makeup of the dream team changed many times. But with the expedition finally becoming a reality, Corran had assembled a team of Olympic and world-class paddlers that he considered to be the best lineup yet. American Rusty Sage was a freestyle kayaking prodigy. While still competing in the junior class, he won the world championship, beating the world's best and most experienced paddlers, including teammates Corran Addison and Steve Fisher. Rusty went on to become one of the planet's premier kayak wave surfers, and is generally regarded as one of the most innovative paddlers in the world today.
In many sports, people get paid vast sums of money to go and compete, and for kayaking, we kayak because we love it. We travel and see the world, and it's for the passion. It's for that inner excitement that you get when you go down the wave, when you're surfing the Pororoca and you see it barreling, and it's just something that nobody else has seen before, and you do it just because you want to be a part of it, and you enjoy having your friends around you. And at the end of the day, we don't make any money. We just want to see things and test our limits and have fun at the same time and meet new people. And it's all about the experience, and it's about being able to have fun and culminating everything together and telling a story at the end of it. No kayak has ever done this before, and I've always wanted to be a part of a crew, especially of a good, solid group of people, to go and explore this and see what kind of tricks we can do, but mainly just to get a feel for it, go down the Amazon, be in Brazil, and experience this wave that nobody else on a kayak has ever experienced.
South African Steve Fisher is a two-time world bronze medalist in freestyle kayaking. Although he came from a flatwater sprinting background, as a junior he became fed up with the discipline's lack of excitement, and he moved to the mighty Zambezi River, where he kayaked every day until 1998, when Corran invited him to the USA. Here, Corran taught Steve all he knew about freestyle kayaking, and that same year, Steve surprised the kayaking establishment by winning the bronze medal at the World Championships, beaten only by Corran himself. Since then, Steve has moved on to become regarded as the world's best overall kayaker.
As with most of our missions around the world, we've always got a very lively group of characters. I always marvel at the types of people that I mix with. Just people of such extremes, and each person has such a unique and strong personality. Hey!
Let's do a camera with myself.
If we don't keep ourselves occupied at all times, we get ourselves into trouble.
But from a paddling standpoint, we've definitely got some of the best, what we would call big wave or general wave surfers in the world. We've all had a lot of experience running rivers. We've all had experience surfing river waves. We've all had a lot of experience surfing ocean waves. So pretty much everybody that we've put together in this group have been a natural choice for something that is completely new to kayaking.
Argentina's Diego Valsecchi comes from a different background than the other members of the expedition. Diego has spent most of his adult life touring the world and kayaking its most interesting and exclusive spots. He quickly made a name for himself as a paddler of matchless skill and personal daring. His renown for running rapids is legendary. While he has no medals to hang on the wall, Diego's abilities are second to none, and his experience in expedition kayaking would be vital on this trip.
I'm Diego Walsecki from Argentina, and I've been paddling for like many years, and I spent probably the last 10 years in different continents, and mostly Africa, South America, and Asia, paddling like wide rivers, doing expeditions and adventures, and spending probably a lot of time in like hot play spots on these huge rivers. And I don't have this strong background like Steve, Rusty, and Corran, where they spend like a lot of their time doing competitions, running like to the worlds and many circuits in Europe, America, and I spend probably most of my time on the rivers doing all this other kind of stuff.
To record the journey, kayaking's premier photographer, Mirko Gerasho of Italy, would capture the event on film. Corran and Australian kayakers Josh Waterstone and Dan Campbell would handle the cinematography. Just getting this far-flung group together in one room is a logistical headache in and of itself. Trying to get them all to a small town in the middle of the Amazon jungle would be a task almost as frightening as the wave itself, due to the endless scheduling conflicts with the team members' other high-profile events.
One of the things that I guess that people think a lot when they look at our lifestyle and they see how we operate. If you take someone, for example, who has a regular 9-to-5 job and they're going in and they've got to be at work at 7 or 8 o'clock, so they're up at 5, and they see what we do and they see films of us or photos of us in magazines, and it looks like this lifestyle is just one massive freeload party. And there's definitely that aspect. To it.
We were definitely risking life last night. This is actually quite easy, the whole wave part, but if you had seen Steve and Corran last night, when they turned up at, I think, 3:30 in the morning, after it sounds like a hard day in, where were they? Fortaleza. They were lucky to be alive this morning, for sure.
But it's certainly not a walk. We don't just sit around all day and then go surfing for an hour and then sit around, all day again. The organization behind being on a wave like this is massive. The work to get things organized to come down here, I've been working on this since January, putting this trip together and trying to get things organized for here, putting together the right team of people. That's a lot of work. But we come down here and traveling 3 days to arrive, and then we have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning on the first day, and we're broken. I mean, we are tired. We've been going for 3 days non-stop.
Corran and Steve, both recent transplants to Montreal, traveled together from Canada, meeting the rest of the team members in São Luís. As with all great journeys, things don't always go as planned. So, 2 days later, after an elongated stay in Sao Paulo and Fortaleza, they arrived at their final destination.
We arrived in Brazil and we got welcomed with open arms, Brazilian style. I discovered that they don't call it Brazilian coffee here, they just call it coffee. And the nuts are just called nuts. And a wax is just called a wax. Yeah? And it's awesome. Parties on the beach, little thatched roofs, plenty of cold beer, good times. We got invited to a 70th birthday party of the grandmother of one of the young ladies that introduced us to town. And so we got showed around the Brazilian culture on our first evening. Got to visit people's homes, meet old people, got driven around by a chauffeur. Great time, good start.
Drinking to Grandma's health, they could not help but notice how often they are invited into the homes and lives of the people they visit on their global tours. Kayakers, due to the remoteness of the places they visit, are almost always immersed directly into the cultures of the people and the countries they pass through on their river-running adventures. In São Luís, Corran and Steve join the rest of the team and their Portuguese guide, Sergio Luís. Sergio is one of a new generation of entrepreneurs in the town, trying to make the Pororoca a global surfing destination. His new company offers his expert knowledge of the Pororoca and its cycles to surfers hoping to ride the wave. Because of the violent manner in which the wave is created and the Amazon's muddy riverbed, the wave itself is constantly changing. This makes detailed and current knowledge of the river, the prevailing weather conditions, and the riverbed indispensable. In the 5 years that Sergio has been surfing the wave, it has never been the same between two spring tides. Without a guide or personal local knowledge, a team could travel all the way to the river and never actually find the wave. Once the team had assembled in São Luís, and after taking some time to catch up and trade stories of their latest exploits, the process of unpacking and preparing their equipment began. Having the right gear and boats for this wave would be essential to the ultimate success of the expedition. But just as important, everything had to be checked out and any last-minute adjustments and repairs made before pushing on to their final destination. As with any expedition of this nature, there are those last-minute situations that could make or break the entire journey. For example, Steve realized he'd forgotten to pack his footrests and had to improvise a system using bits of packing foam and plastic.
Since we're in Brazil with limited resources, unless Campbell can weave me a footrest out of palm leaves, that's going to be my footrest for the duration of the trip. And you guys stealing my ideas now. Okay. Moment to watch. Better than the original. It's actually better than the one before. The one that Steve stole in the night. How do you get Steve Fisher and Dan Campbell on the same list? That's what I call guilty by association.
Then there was Rusty's fiberglass repair job to his kayak that looked like anything but the work of a budding engineer. Slipshod and gaudy in appearance, with questionable water tightness, it begged close scrutiny and enthusiastic ridicule, which was supplied in abundance by his companions.
It had a hole in it, and I had extra Kevlar, and I tried to cut it, and it just kept spreading apart. I had to put it back together, and it didn't want to go back together as well, so what can you say?
That is about the worst patch job I've ever seen. And you've got how many years of schooling for this?
Well, they didn't teach us how to put the thing in there. They just told us on how much strength it can hold. I know that if I hit it again, it won't be that bad. No, I have a degree in mechanical engineering.
The surf kayaks to be used on the Pororoca and on other big ocean waves like it are very specialized. Most modern freestyle kayaks are just over 6 feet long and have a pronounced rocker or upward sweep of the ends. This feature makes it easier for them to pop off the wave's surface and perform aerial tricks similar to those done by snowboarders or wakeboarders. The trade-off is that this same feature makes the boat slow and ill-suited to surfing fast, powerful waves like the Pororoca. Formerly, the other option would be a classic ocean surfing kayak. These are generally just under 8 feet long with almost no rocker. This gives them speeds of more than twice that of a freestyle kayak, enabling them to keep up with the fast-moving waves, carving across the face to reach every section of the wave easily. The trade-off is that the lack of rocker severely limits the boat's ability to break free of the wave face and perform aerial moves. For the Pororoca, the perfect kayak would be a perfect blend of these two design philosophies. Currently, only one kayak exists that is a suitable balance between these two contradictory design styles, the Dragorossi Squash Tail. The Squash Tail is a new design on the kayak market, combining elements of each type of boat to create something totally new. It is a fast river surfing kayak that boasts an impressive balance of big wave-inspired surfing speed and the ability to perform the latest aerial tricks. Because of this careful balance and performance between classic surf kayaks and new school play kayaks, Corran and Diego, as well as photographers and cinematographers Mirko Garosho and Dan Campbell, all chose the Squash Tail as their kayak of choice for the trip.
I choose that boat because it's I think the fastest boat in the market. Actually, definitely it is. And the wave, the Pororoca, is like a super long stretch where the waves like change so much. sometimes it's like super steep, and then comes a little flat, and then you have like a big wide car, and you need like a fast boat to go from one section to the other one, and like to not miss the wave.
Rusty Sage and Steve Fisher opted for custom-made, traditional ocean surfing kayaks. While this would limit them in their ability to do short radius carving maneuvers and most of today's freestyle acrobatics, the increase in speed would be beneficial in staying on the wave when it went through its less powerful cycles on its climb up the river.
Well, after a little bit of decisions, I wanted to choose a fast boat for this wave. Couldn't be slow butt bouncer, had to be fast down the line as well as hard carves, and still being able to do progressive maneuvers. So I chose the Wave Sport Flyer, light, and really fast down the line. And hopefully we'll be able to figure something out off the lip, and it'll be good.
As with all friends of a competitive nature, they would joke around and kid each other about the choice of equipment, each citing theirs as the best, and pointing it out at every opportunity while on the wave.
You do realize that Mirko is going to kick your ass anyway.
No, he's not. No, Miko is not going to kick my ass. I will beat him down to a bloody pulp.
Once last-minute equipment checks and repairs were completed, it was time to load up the kayaks, motorboats, and jet skis and head north to the distant village of Arari, where the wave and possible thrashing awaited them. Overloaded to the point of absurdity, and certainly not street legal in any first-world country, they piled into the cars provided by Sergio and set off on the final leg of their journey. Elation soon turned to frustration as the reality of backcountry travel in a third-world nation set in. The road to Arari is not a well-traveled one, and in addition to the planned 3-hour drive, the team was forced to spend countless hours on the side of the road dealing with emergency car repairs.
Go time? Go time.
This is the reality of Brazil. For all the progress the country has made of late, you must always remember where you are. Things are simply done differently here.
The radiator's leaking. The tail lights on the trailer aren't working. We've been here about 3 hours, and the only good thing is it is a V8 and it's a Chevrolet. It should keep going. We've got 2 hours to travel. 5:30 start on the Pororoca.
Mechanical failures would prove the bane of the expedition. The upside of being stranded on a roadside in Brazil is that they got to witness the unique third-world parade of old buses, cars, and bicycles rambling past. The town of Arari is a gem, located in the heart of what was once the deep Amazonian jungle. Now it's been excavated, cut, stripped, cleaned out, and cultivated. Almost none of the original vegetation remains, but this in no way detracts from the heart and soul of the town that will become the team's adopted home for the next week. They were welcomed with open arms by the local community and eagerly escorted to and from the local cantinas and swimming holes by people of all types and ages.
The locals are cool. They're definitely got a, I would say, beautiful look to them. They're quite stunning people. The local people definitely don't, I've been to lots of countries all over the world, and they definitely have a look to them that's unique to Brazilian. You always hear about Brazilians being beautiful, and they are beautiful for sure.
And what you got? No, não pode sair da minha mão, não pode sair da minha mão. Não. Estou prestando serviço, você quer parar? Oi? Para lá. Muito obrigado, senhor. Tá, obrigado também, tá. Tchau. Tchau.
Estamos aqui em Arari, Maranhão, no Brasil, onde é realizado o Circuito Nacional de Surf na Pororoca.
Since the discovery that the Pororoca can be surfed at Arari, the Brazilian government has built a road to the put-in, and the houses along this road now have electricity, and within the next year they expect to have running water. All this construction is in the hope that board surfers from around the world will come to Arari and surf their wave. Kayaks were something new to them altogether, though most had doubts that the kayakers would be able to surf the wave in their little boats. In the end, they were particularly pleased to learn that the kayaks were probably better adapted to the Pororoca than surfboards. Of course, they also had the benefit of watching the world's best surf kayakers shredding up the big wave.
Porque aqui nós somos ricos, mundo e beleza, inclusive a mim.
This is a piece of land, looks like a stone, but inside is like different kind of minerals inside, and helps the nature to grow up very well. And this is very nice to see here. This is the only one place in the world we can find that things.
The roaring wave arrives on time every day. You can set your watch by it. The sound is the first thing you notice. A rushing roar that begins to rise in your ears nearly 20 minutes before you lay behind.
Listen to that thing. Jesus.
When you finally see the wave for the first time, you cannot help but have a surge of adrenaline shoot through your body. Twice a day at the high tide, the Pororoca comes barreling and crashing its way up the swollen river, tearing up trees and vegetation as it goes. The sight of the mile-wide, 6-foot-high white serpent roaring relentlessly towards you, smashing everything in its path, is awe-inspiring. Unfortunately, the team got more than their fair share of awe-inspiring views. Every day, without exception, one of the motorboat's engines would fail at a most inappropriate moment, leaving the boat and its crew of paddlers marooned in the path of the advancing wave.
No, you can sit there as well.
Maconha, eu vou indo, tu vai mais rápido que eu.
Just keeps breaking every day. When we were towing that jet ski, I was looking at the wave bank.
Out here, things are really a little different. This is a third world country, even though it is very developed in many ways. And the result of that is that the equipment is not high tech and it is not readily available. When an engine breaks, they can't just go in and buy a new part. They tinker in it and they fix it. And they fix it with what they have available, which is most often not the right stuff. And the result of that is that we're constantly working on these boats, constantly fixing them. Every morning we get here, there's a bit of a boat saga. One of the boats every morning has failed to start. So the people who are in the boats that are functioning will take off downriver, hoping that the guys left behind will be able to make it. So far so good, we've always made it, but almost invariably one boat shows up at the last possible seconds. And that's kind of stressful, especially when you've traveled so far to get here, and your window is very small. The wave is here for an hour and it's here for 5 days, and then it's gone and you're done.
Alright, you just lost the jet ski. Hey, here it comes, boys.
Well, it's on its way. Here it comes. We can hear it and see it coming, and it sounds like our jet ski is fucked again. Every morning when we got to the wave, we keep broken engines like every day, and coming from 4 boats and now with 2 boats, and getting like super overload and all the boats, so we got super hard sometimes to get back on the wave, and yeah, it was very crazy, and everything gets fixed for the next day, and when we go out there the same thing happens. So
the closest call came on the morning of day 2, when the boat carrying Steve Fisher, Dan Campbell, and Rusty Sage ran aground no more than a few hundred meters in front of the rapidly approaching wall of water. Jumping off the boat, they waded in the deep brown muck, trying to drag the boat to deeper water, while the wave barreled toward them. In their haste, someone had stood on the fuel line, disconnecting it, and the boat refused to start. By the time Corran and Mirko in the camera boat were able to throw them a line to attempt to tow the lifeless boat to safety, it was too late. Their only option was to find a weaker spot in the wave where the channel was deeper, and hope that the stranded boat and helpless driver would be able to ride it out without capsizing. In those agonizing moments, as the paddlers on the boat realized that they were totally at the wave's mercy, hearts raced and they decided to scramble into their kayaks before it would be too late. In quick succession, they launched off the boat in a frantic attempt not to miss the wave they had come so far to surf. with the stalled boat positioned at what seemed to be a soft spot in the wave. The camera boat could do no more. They cut the line, spun around, and sped away from the wave, leaving the stranded boat and driver to their fate. Good fortune was with him. The wave greened out in the last instant, opening a small tongue of calmer water. The helpless boat rocked violently over the top, churning and slamming into the water, breaking several parts on board, but escaping relatively unscathed. After reconnecting the gas line and making a few minor repairs, the boat was pronounced seaworthy and pressed back into service for its primary mission, chasing down the Pororoca wave.
This is earlier than we usually get back from the bar.
Ave Maria, valei-me Nossa Senhora, meu Senhor dos navegantes. Virgem, credo, cruz, Ave Maria, valei-me Nossa Senhora, meu Senhor dos navegantes. Virgem, credo, cruz, Ave Maria, tá na hora da partida, corre, corre lá na rampa, velho moço e...
Each morning, the wave arrives 40 minutes later than the day before and can be surfed for only about 2 hours during the morning tide. With such a small window of opportunity, and 3 boats full of manic world-class kayak surfers looking for their chance, it's no surprise that the battle was on among the team members to maximize their time on the wave. Placing the launch boat in exactly the right spot in front of the wave is of paramount importance. But after that, it is all up to the paddlers and their well-honed skills to read the ever-changing feature and be in just the right spot to latch onto it.
Don't go yet, dude, too early. Wow, listen to that.
One small mistake in reading the wave results in a flip or loss of speed, and the wave washes past. Once off the wave, you could sit in the turbulent backwash for as long as 15 or 20 minutes before a path opens up to allow one of the motorboats to blast through for a retrieval.
Now, one of the features of this wave, one of the things that we have to think about out there is that the biggest part of this wave is when it first arrives. That is when the wave is at its highest, that is when it is most powerful, that is when we're going to get the most exciting ride, is when the wave first appears and we can first catch it. And if you miss the wave, you're definitely pretty bleak, because first of all, you know that your mates are now on the wave and you're not, and you're sitting behind it, and you have 24 hours to think about what it is that you did wrong and what are you going to change so that you don't miss it again the next day. Another thing as well is, of course, that these drivers grew up around here. The boat drivers, with the exception of one of them, really grew up around here, and all they know is the Pororoca. And they haven't been to the Zambezi, and they haven't been to Skookumchuck, and they haven't been to all these places that we go to and seen what we do. And so they relate things to what they know, and what they know is that this wave is bad. And they go out there in these little tin boats with their engines, which are not necessarily what they would like either. You know, they're underpowered and they fail, and they are scared. But despite that, it's incredible how willing they are to put themselves right in the path of this thing so that we can pop off these boats and go surfing the wave, and so that we can get right in there and film it. I mean, we're filming very close to the wave. Some of these boats actually surf the wave sometimes, and they're literally planing out on this wave. And that, for someone who's not a surfer, not a kayaker, and only knows this wave as being something bad, must be absolutely terrifying, and they do it anyway.
Beyond the need to catch the ride of a lifetime, there are other, more compelling reasons to avoid a flip, or worse, a prolonged swim. The kayakers' expedition had led them to Amazonia. It has been noted that there is more living under the water here than above it. As soon as you set foot, or any other body part, in the river, it becomes part of the food chain. Sharks, crocodiles, and anacondas are lurking in the water, waiting for their next meal. A lone kayaker floating around a kilometer from shore is an easy, delicious delicacy. But more terrifying still is what can happen beneath the water. Piranhas are one thing, And we've all heard the stories of hungry piranha stripping a hapless cow to the bone in just a few minutes. But the thing that strikes real terror into the hearts of men is the minute kendiru fish. The kendiro takes the term invasive species to a whole new level. The kendiru makes its living by swimming up the urine stream of any hapless animal foolish enough to relieve itself in the river.
Representation of the fish that tries to swim up your binky and lodge itself.
It's an enlarged version of the condoro fish.
Yeah, so what happens is you're taking a leak and this thing comes swimming up. It goes right up your, whilst it tries to. And then you need to have your, and then you can no longer. That was elegant. Camel's just going in the water to take a piss. That's what you call adrenaline sports. That's extreme right there.
For kayakers sealed tightly inside their boats, this is less of a concern. But Corran was intent to both kayak and board surf the wave. For that reason, he was adamant about wearing tight-fitting shorts and a latex condom while in the water. In spite of all the potential distractions and misadventures, it finally became time to do what they had come for: surf the Pororoca. The wave itself was truly unique. It would have fast sections and then mushy, soft sections. It would continually build itself up to more than 6 feet high and then die down to less than 3 before jacking up again once it had rebuilt its energy. Fear of washing off the wave prohibited the paddlers from pushing themselves too hard, preferring to enjoy the uniqueness of the wave and have nice long soul surfs, rather than push the technical envelope and risk being left behind with the wildlife. Nonetheless, with this caliber of paddler, even placid soul surfing is impressive to watch.
o samba pra você.
Corran was most impressed with Rusty's surfing, seduced by the grace and speed that Rusty always manages to bring to kayak surfing.
You know, I really think that Rusty had the best rides out there. When I was watching him on that wave, take that one shot where the wave really jacked up and that boat's in front of him and he's cruising around so fast and over that wave. He's cutting way out the shoulder to the left and then coming back into the right and flying out across that foam pile. Throws in a big helix. You know, I really think that of everybody there, that Rusty is the person that impressed me the most. I really enjoyed watching him, and I really enjoyed being on the wave with him.
Steve Fisher is a legend in the kayaking community, and his rides reflected his reputation. While he lacked the ocean wave experience that Rusty could tap into, the sheer power that Steve brings to kayak surfing is mind-blowing. He was able to generate aerials in the most unexpected places through his mix of amazing skill and unmatched power. He schooled the rest of the paddlers with the explosiveness of his rides. Steve is truly a master of his craft. Mirko described one of Corran's rides as the most impressive demonstration of kayaking he had ever seen. Corran has always been a student of the art of wave surfing. He has spent years bringing ocean wave surfing skill and technology to whitewater environments and is now the most noteworthy kayak wave surfer in the world. This long passion showed in the blinding speed he was able to transform into explosive lip turns, powerful bottom cars, and vertical re-entries. According to Mirko, who recorded everyone's rides, all the paddlers out there were amazing, but there was a symbiotic relationship between Corran, his kayak, and the wave that made him stand out from the group. Expert board surfer Sergio Luis agreed, citing the variety in all of Corran's rides, remarking that it was unlike anything he expected to see a kayak do.
You know, working with Mirko is a true pleasure. He is such an incredible photographer. He's so professional. Every day we get back to the hotel and we look at the images that he's taken of the day, and they're all inspiring. I mean, it feels great to be on that wave. It feels amazing. It's so incredible. But when you see Mirko's photos and those moments that he captures, it just makes you so much happier about the rides that you've had that day. To actually see them on photo, it's pretty incredible feeling, you know. I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy working with Mirko because of that.
Surfing the wave was a unique experience. There are just a handful of waves of this nature in the world, and the Pororoca may be the most impressive. But it was not the wave that made this trip a success, but the entire experience of being in Greater Amazonia. The people of the region were fantastic. On the final day of the expedition, Mirko, Diego, and Corran were invited to dine at Pereira's home. Diego jumped into the water with the family to catch the fish that would become dinner. Meanwhile, Pereira blasted music from a PA system in the back of his Jeep that would make any rock musician jealous with envy. They danced the samba as they drank and ate well into the afternoon, trading stories of kayaking expeditions all over the world for stories of life in northern Brazil and the discovery of the Pororoca's potential for surfing. That afternoon, well baked not only by the sun but the food and drink as well, they returned to Corran to join the rest of the group for a last night on the town in preparation for the long journey home. They would spend their last night out reminiscing on their experiences of the week and making plans for their next expedition together. Each would return home with stories that would hopefully encourage other kayakers to put the Pororoca on their list of waves to surf and Brazil on their list of places to visit. The trip had been a complete success. They were now the first kayakers to surf the Pororoca wave, replacing fear of the unknown with a healthy dose of respect for the wave's power and love of the country's endearing people. So memorable was this adventure that even after a week in the backcountry of Brazil, with all its pitfalls and strange idiosyncrasies, it is safe to assume that the only thing any of these world-class athletes were looking forward to leaving far behind are the Kandiro fish.